So thank you for joining today. My name is Rob. I'm going to take you through a brief demonstration about Atvero and how it aids in managing compliance and consistency within AEC information exchange. So today's product demo is going to focus primarily on managing emails in context to your projects and also securely sending information and transmittals with external parties. So if you'd like to see a full product demonstration, just please let me know and we can arrange that for you. So I thought I'd start by just giving a bit of a brief overview for Atvero for those that have not seen the platform before. So Atvero is the only cloud-based document drawing and email management system that's been built on Microsoft 365 for the AEC industry. And the thing that our customers like the most about Atvero is that it uses Microsoft's ecosystem to fulfill a crucial part of the work, which is maintaining accuracy and also reducing risk around project information. Atvero itself is an application that's built onto Microsoft 365 and uses SharePoint to store information. So being built in this way means Atvero looks and feels like a Microsoft application and ensures that new users find it intuitive. Atvero also uses your own Microsoft single sign-on, which means that it's accessed easily in the same way that you'd access any of the other Microsoft applications, such as Word. And finally, being integrated into Microsoft 365 means that we can use project-related Microsoft applications, such as Outlook or Teams, Word, Excel, and others to create project information, all from one central location. Finally, using Atvero means that all of your data stays inside your Microsoft tenancy, and this gives complete ownership of your key project information. It also means that you're not relying on a third party to provide access to your own information, be that a software company with a software license or a common data environment for a client. As project information software, Atvero provides project teams the ability to track every version of all sent or received documents and drawings with the automated issue register. And it also makes accessing complete version history of files really simple, whilst also ensuring the challenges of using folders are overcome. And this means then that you've got the ability to allow team members to easily access the most recent document versions to work on. Atvero also uses a defined naming scheme for all of the projects. So we've got ISO 19650 that's built into the system and maintained by us. However, you can use any scheme that you wish, so any naming scheme that you wish across any of your projects. So you can choose different naming schemes across multiple projects. This ensures that the accuracy of information is very, very high and especially useful when uploading to a client's CDE, as an example. So email can be the lifeblood of many projects, with key decisions that are communicated by email, and actually frequently documents from third parties are delivered through email. And Atvero provides Outlook integration as a fundamental part of what we do. This allows email filing to a common location and provides a shared place to find all of the project-related emails. So Atvero also ensures that those emails and attachments cannot be filed more than once, and crucially, that ensures that there's no duplication of information in the projects. During the issue of records, Atvero also always selects the latest revision, and it does that by default. So that helps to eliminate traditional human errors. These are the main two areas that I'm going to show you today in the next part, which will be the demonstration. So I'm going to start here within Atvero. So the Atvero record section is really the heart of where all of the documentation sits inside Atvero. So probably the most commonly part. We also have inside Atvero, we have project contact database. We have a full approval process for the records as they come in and the documentation as it's coming in. We have a way to then see the received files and transmitted files. And we also then can see a formal issue register, which I'll show you in a little bit. We have a really comprehensive search functionality that sits inside Atvero. And then we also have product workflows. And then the ability to access the email inbox and also use Atvero inside of Teams, which I'll show you as well. So as I mentioned, we're inside of the record section, and we can see that we have historical information around this particular project. So these are all of the latest versions for this particular project. It's the latest version of a document or plan, drawing, whatever information that we got within here is the very latest version. There's a number of ways to bring in information into Atvero. So firstly, we have the ability to, because of the integrations into Word, Excel and PowerPoint, we can create Word documents directly from Atvero. So we can use a template that we have, maybe it's something like a contract or an agenda or a site visit template, and we can use that template to then be able to create that inside Atvero. Atvero will then populate some of the information like the name, so the naming scheme for the document, but also some of the key information around the person, the project, and it means then you've got the latest template available. So that's one way that we can bring information into Atvero. Another way that we bring information in is that we have integrations directly into Revit and also AutoCAD. And that means that then you can work from inside Revit and inside of AutoCAD. And at the point that you want to then send that information into Atvero to make a formal record of it, be that for approval or be that to issue that document out, you can then do that directly from Revit or AutoCAD. So they will then be sent into the project inside of Atvero. We also have the ability to have any documentation that sits inside SharePoint, and then that can then be sent inside Atvero. And again, it's when you want to create that from being maybe work in progress into being a formal document that you then have saved inside Atvero. We then have the ability to upload files from us or receive files from others into Atvero. And these mechanisms start to build up the full detail of all of the information around this particular project. Of course, the other way that we then also get information is through email, and that's where I'm going to focus the demonstration today. So I'm going to move through and over to my demonstration email inbox. So here we are using Outlook, and with the integration that we have as from Atvero, it makes it really easy for us to then be able to work through Outlook as we would normally do, but then also to be able to file important information into the projects with minimal effort, which is key to this. So you'll see in here, I have a couple of new emails that I've received. When I then go on to that particular email, I can see actually there's email within here, and there's some documentation that has then been attached to this email. So what Atvero allows you to then do is from your inbox is to be able to just right click on the email, and I can come straight the way down to here, which is then file email. Filing email then brings up the Atvero add-in. And what that then allows me to then do is it takes any of the projects that I am a member of within Atvero, and it then brings up those 5 different projects. For me, at this point now, I know that this project information from this email, I want to file into this particular project. And then I can then choose, do I want to file the attachments that are in this? Yes, I do. And do I want to file the email conversation? Yes, I do. So once I've chosen those, I can then go through and file the selected. And what you'll see on the right-hand side is this is now being populated. So what it's doing here is it's looking inside Atvero to see whether it's seen this version of this document before. So it believes that this is a new record. It sees that this initial schedule that I've got here is already been filed, so it's not going to allow me to do that because I'm duplicating the information. And then we can see here that for this drawing, we actually had a DWF, a DWG and a PDF that is then inside of there. So what Atvero has then done is it's checked all 3 of those, but recognizes that it's actually still part of the same record. So it's pulling that information together at this point. And what I can then do is then when I'm ready to, and you'll notice that it's not brought the PNG of the signature into there because we don't want that information in, we can then bring the key files through from there by filing now. And Atvero will then do that in the background. So unlike some of the other email filing systems that are out there that then use your own machine to do that, Atvero files that through 365, means that no matter how many emails or how many attachments that you've got, you will not slow down your computer whilst you do that. So now that though all of that email and all of the attachments will now be being filed in the background into Atvero. The same thing happens when I want to send an email out. So almost in reverse, if I just go to my drafts and to an email that I created earlier. So as I send this email out to Alan, once I've sent that email, I then have the same option. So I'll choose to pick up the Atvero Towers project. There's no option for attachments because there's not an attachment to be sent from here. And it's asking me, do I want to file that email conversation? If it's not project related, I can just send without filing. But as I want to save this information into here, I'm going to go and file and send. So really important part of the way that Atvero works around these emails is it's very, very simple to file all of my emails, whether that's incoming emails with attachments, just by right-clicking on there, and then Atvero will then allow you to then choose the files, and it'll also check whether the duplicates, and then it'll also look for the revisions that it's got within there. But also on an outgoing basis, every single email that I create as I go through into my emails will have the ability for me to send that, and immediately it pops up. So I have to then decide not to file that rather than filing it so that it doesn't show in the project. So that means everything outgoing should, in theory, be captured within Atvero. So what then happens within Atvero is we then also have the ability to be able to see the groups. So as I mentioned before, I'm a member of 5 different projects inside Atvero, and therefore I see these 5 different projects that sit within there. I've also got one of them favorited, which I can do so that they become more prevalent, especially if we've got lots of different projects that we've got within there. And as I click on there, I can see all of the different information that has been filed inside of Atvero. So I can see all of these different emails that have then been filed and all of the different information. So as I go through and look at any of these that have been filed earlier today and yesterday, I can see that. Crucially, you cannot delete these once they've gone through to the group without having admin access. So it means that everything that is filed stays inside of the group and stays inside of Atvero. It also means that because I've got access to the group directly from my email inbox, I can go through and I can just choose to search for anything within there. So what that'll then do is it'll pick up at the word that I used as an example, fire, and that's then brought through any of the emails, any of the content that I have inside of here. And again, with it being used as an email function directly from Outlook, you also get the ability to have all of the search and filter functionality that you would have inside of there. As we go through back into our inbox, what you'll see is that there is these green icons, and these green icons correspond to being filed inside of Atvero. So you'll see now that whilst I was inside of the group, that this email has now been marked as filed in Atvero, and now I know that those files will be inside Atvero, inside the Atvero Towers project when I go to there. Also, for my colleagues will also have the ability to be able to see that has happened, because they'll have that same flag and they will not need to do the filing themselves. And again, another way that Atvero saves on duplication of email content and the associated attachments that then go with those emails. So email within Atvero, really simple to use, but actually fulfills a really fantastic process of meaning that we've got all of that information very, very easily being sent into our projects. So as I go back into Atvero, what we'll then have is the record section. And as we go back down into the records, you'll see now that there was some additional files that have been sent across. And these were the ones that I've just sent to myself. So these are the ones that were received. I filed them inside Atvero, and now they're showing inside of the project. So I can see all of that there. So we can see this plan V4 and we can see that it came through Wednesday, September, and we can see the information around that all sits inside of there. We also can go to where we see inside of this transmittals area, we can see the to us. So we can see here that this was the email that we just filed. So site visit and files, we can see that that's there. We can see that that was received from Marcus Roberts. We can see that it was the demo user that filed that through the email when we received that. And we can also see all of the different files that were there, and they were all listed within here. So that allows me the ability just to see these very, very quickly, which makes it nice and simple to then be able to access all of that information that sits inside of there. So within the record section, what you'll see then is that we have some different colors against here. Because we sent these in, they are missing a little bit of information that needs to happen for each one of these. So if I was to go to this plan, what I can then do is go through and start to put in some more information that it needs. So things like the functional breakdown, the spatial breakdown, the form. So we put that as a drawing, and also the discipline that came through, and that will then update this information so that we've then got that. So we know then we've got, even though we sent that information in, we know we've got key info that will then sit behind this record as metadata. So I've shown you the way that you can simply get information that's coming inbound and outbound inside of Atvero. We also have a fantastic search functionality that sits inside Atvero. So when I'm going into here, I can go into the search, and what I can then do is use, maybe I'll use the word perspective. And by choosing perspective, what that'll then do is it'll look for not only the word that was in there, and that was one of the documents that I uploaded earlier today, but it'll also search inside of the PDF or the Word document, the Excel template that we're using to look for the word perspective. So it's now seeing it not just there, but it's also seeing it inside of the record, and it shows a little window with a preview of that. Same thing for if I wanted to just use the word, so if I just use John Smith as an example, anything that's related to John Smith will then have that, will then appear within the search. And again, we can do the same thing as I did earlier with fire, and that will then bring through information around there. So all of the search criteria that you'll then be looking for can sit within here, and the information is really easy to access. I mentioned around the emails. So again, when you look through here, we've got the project email inbox. That then means that you can access your project directly from the web browser. So you have another way that you can look at the information if you prefer to use the web browser. You also then have the ability to then go into Teams. So I can start to pull through information around Atvero directly from Teams. So what you'll see here is that in my Teams, I've got this OL Towers project. I can go into Atvero, and what you saw then previously with the record section is it within here. And I can use Atvero in exactly the same way, but I can use it directly from Teams. So this is where having the ability to work on top of Microsoft, which is what Atvero is built on, has the ability, it gives you the ability to work in different locations, but also to be able to start to use that Microsoft infrastructure like Teams, like Word, like Excel, and like Outlook to really start to work on the projects in a really joined up way. So I've talked a little bit around the records, around getting information in. So as I mentioned, you can bring in information from a number of different areas, whether that's creation of it as new documents, whether that's uploading information, bringing it from Revit, bringing it from AutoCAD, or as we went through in detail, the emails. So the whole point of that is that then what Atvero has is a collection of all of the key documentation for the project. So you can see now within this project, I have all of the information that's starting to build up and give me that view of the project. So the end point of the way that Atvero works is that we'll want to take some of that information and then we'll want to make an issue. So creation of an issue in Atvero follows a really simple process. And what typically that this happens with Atvero is it removes the need to be issuing using things like WeTransfer and Dropbox, and definitely removes the need to issue out via email as well, because email becomes very difficult to understand exactly what's been issued. Is it the latest revision? Who received that? Did they do anything with that? Have they opened it? Whereas Atvero can take all of that away from you. So I'm going to talk you through how that happens. So I'm just going to pick a couple of different records within here, and then I'm going to go through and create a new issue. So once I've then done that, I'm going to go follow exactly the same process to create this issue. So if I just put webinar issue on the 20th of the 9th, and then what we then do is go down some criteria that we need to choose for this issue so that we've got the detail behind it and we know who we're sending that to. So firstly, it's the purpose of the issue. So this the status. We can then also put some issue notes that are going to be included on the transmittal sheet so that we can then give some clear information around the records and why they're being shared. We can also then decide on the template that we're going to use. So we could choose a number of different templates that we want to send these documents out, these records out, dependent on who we're going to send them to. We can also set up distribution lists so that we can easily send out to a distribution list. Maybe that's a client leadership team, or potentially it's an internal distribution team, or we can individually just send those out. So let me just send these out to John Smith. So now that I've got John within there, and I've followed that single way of creating an issue, we now know that actually, even though we've had one single way of creating the issue, we know that actually there's a few different methods that people will want to follow to issue. So inside Atvero and inside this issue area, we then have those abilities. So looking from the bottom, we then have a direct integration for you to send those into BIM 360. So you can then choose to send those files directly into the CD. We can export as a zip file for download. So if a client, as an example, was saying we only want to receive everything by WeTransfer, that's the way we're doing it, you could export that these as many records as you wish to as a zip file and then have those then to download. But that's not our recommended way. We can also use a number of different ways, like sending the checkpoint link or emailing as the attached files. But the preferred way from all of our customers is that we use Atvero Checkpoint. And Atvero Checkpoint is a portal that we then have that then means that we can then send as many different documents as we wish to. They look like they've come through from myself as an individual or the person that's sending them through. But it also then crucially gives you a timestamp of what happened when those documents were received by the recipient. So it means that you can prove, if you ever need to, in 3 months' time, 5 months' time, 15 years' time, that that person accessed the documentation. So I'm going to show you that within the demonstration today. So as we go through, there's going to be some other options we can choose, like email comments that we can add into there. And you'll see down at the bottom, these are the two different records that I chose. So we've got the information around those records, and Atvero has automatically defaulted to the PDF of that. So you can see within here, we've got a PDF. We can, if we wish to, add the additional document types, so the DWGs and the DWF onto that if we wish to. However, recommendation is usually just to send the PDF through from that. So I'm going to go through and create and transmit that for you. Now that I've created and transmitted that, that'll then go into my transmittals area, which shows all of the transmittals that I've then done recently. So I would then be able to see that that is going through and that the issue is coming through. So whilst that happens, because it'll just take those documents, convert them, and then create the transmittal document to then attach and then send those through, which typically will take about 30 seconds, depending on how many documents are in there. I'm just going to show you what then happens. Because we've created an issue in the same format, we then have the ability to see a formal issue register. So this is one of the things that I find I hear regularly, is that creating this type of register of all of the documents that have been sent out is very, very laborious and time intensive. So what Atvero does is it creates the issue, so you can see each of the issues there. You can see the different date that was sent out and who sent it out, and then you can see all of the different records that were sent. We can also see the revision for that, and we can also see who was sent to. So we can see that these are the people that we've sent issues to, and we can see the different way that they have received them, whether it's zip, whether it was BIM 360, whether it was Atvero checkpoint. So all of that can then be created very, very easily, which then allows us to link back to the record. So I can see the record within there, or the issue. So I can go through to the issue and see all of the information and what happened behind them. So whilst I've been talking about that, what we've will then have done is we've received then this transmittal. So if I've gone back into my inbox, if you then think about this inbox being the recipient's inbox, I then have my email that was sent from Atvero. So this is the recipient that has received this here. The recipient then gets the template of this transmittal, and they also then have a PDF of the transmittal that's attached that Atvero has automatically created. And then at the bottom down here, you can see the revisions. So we can see the different documents that we have sent out to the recipient, and Atvero has automatically selected the latest revisions of those. For me to access those, I want to click on View Transmittal. From there, I can then go through and request the code. And we do this so that there is then a 6-digit multi-factor authentication code. What that then allows us to make sure is that as we come through into here, I can then use that code, and I can then get access to these files. So when we then go back and look at this later, I can see that that person has used multi-factor authentication. From their perspective as a recipient, I now have all of the different documents. So if I had 100 different records all sitting within that particular issue, there is no problem with that whatsoever. They'll all sit inside of here, and I can go through and download that as a zip. That'll go into my downloads folder on my local machine, so on the machine I'm using, or individually I can just take one of those files. So from a recipient perspective, it's really easy. They've received an email, they've entered a multi-factor authentication code, they now have access to all of those files. From your perspective, what that then means is that when I go into the issue that we've created, I can go through and look for the issue. When I click on that, which is the webinar issue, you'll then see that we've got those two files, that it was successfully transmitted. If I go into checkpoint, you'll see that John Smith downloaded the file, and you'll see then the history of that. So at 4:57 p.m, we clicked on the checkpoint link, entered the multi-factor authentication, viewed the files, downloaded the files as zip, and then finally downloaded that file. So it means then that every single document that then ever leaves your business is then tracked in a really sophisticated way that cannot be disputed later down the line. It means that you've then got the ability to know really simply which documents were sent out, so that if you ever need to think about one particular record and you need to then send the later version, or you have a problem with that, you then be able to see exactly when it was issued and exactly who to. And then to go right back to the very beginning of where we started, by using the record section within Atvero and using the email management, you then be able to pull all of that information together so that you can then issue effectively. So appreciate everyone taking the time today just to run through and let me just give an overview of Atvero. I think there are a few different questions that I'm just going to run through. So let me just stop sharing my screen whilst I do that, and I'll just have a quick look at the questions that we've got there. So first question is around the project folder locations. So how are the project folder locations created? So what we do within Atvero is we have a hub site, and that then allows us to then create each of the individual projects that we then see. So I was in one of the individual projects there. At the hub site level, what I then do is I create that project at Atvero hub site level, and that then creates that project so that they all sit below the hub site so that we have that there. I've also got a question just about Outlook correspondence. So can that be retroactively filled in for projects underway? So yeah, absolutely. So we can send that information through. There's a number of different ways that we do that with customers. Sometimes that will be a data conversion that we will do if there is already a piece of software that's being used for email management or project management. But also we can then take that from the email group inside Outlook and then bring that into projects that are already underway. So certainly we can do that. There's a question just around DWG Revit models that are stored in Atvero. So this is a really common question that we get regularly around Atvero. It's definitely one of those longer type of conversations that we probably need to have between ourselves. So what I'll do is I'll make a note of that, and I'll get in contact with you just to discuss that a little bit further. But certainly a lot of our customers do work on Revit, and I'll explain how that works alongside Atvero. And then final question, oh no, there's a couple more that have come through. Another question is that we've got, how do we do markups? So markups is all part of the approval process that we do have inside Atvero. So we do the approval process inside Atvero. Markups currently are done externally to Atvero and then attached inside the approval process. Again, something that we can definitely show you within the demo. Our roadmap will be for the markups to be to happen inside Atvero later. And then Checkpoint, is Checkpoint a separate license? Yes, Checkpoint is a separate license. It's a very low cost addition that we then have in addition to our subscription that we have within there. All of our customers use Checkpoint. It's a fantastic tool, very, very worth what we charge for that. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time today. And if we'll follow up with you. If you've got any other questions, please feel free to email me. So that's rob.hoyle@atvero.io. But we will follow up with you. So you'll get a conversation from myself or one of my colleagues. And if you want any questions answering, we'll be able to do that at the time. So thank you very much and goodbye.